Rebecca is a third-year student here at Michigan, majoring in the program in the environment and minoring in urban studies. And she aspires to become an urban planner focused on sustainability issues and hopes to one day contribute to cities in developing countries around the world. And Rebecca also is a student worker within the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives. So let's welcome her. Next, we have Dr. Denise Green. And this morning, I picked Denise and Damon and Andrew up from the hotel, and I said, wow, it feels like we're the Blues Brothers. The band is back together. So excited to see all of them on the panel. But Dr. Green began her career as Ryerson University's first Assistant Vice President, Vice Provost of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion on September 1st. And so new in that role. Congratulations on that, Denise. She brings over 20 years of administrative and teaching experience, along with expertise in diversity, research, to shape policy and procedures that reflect the university's goal of setting the standard in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Prior to her role at Ryerson, she was the Associate Vice President for Institutional Diversity at Central Michigan University. And she is an example of someone who's dedicated to diversity and inclusion and has had impact beyond her campus community, resonated within academic circles. She's authored or co-authored over 60 articles, book chapters, reports, and papers. And she also is one of our own in terms of having earned her PhD in higher ed and public policy from the Center for the Study of Higher and Post-Secondary Education. Welcome, Denise. Attorney Andrew Adams is an associate at the Jacobsons, Buffalo, Magnuson, Anderson, and Hogan law firm in St. Paul, Minnesota. Let's see here. He joined that law firm after working in-house for a northern Wisconsin tribe for 4 years. He regularly advises clients on a wide range of legal matters involving federal Indian law, gaming law, litigation, internet gaming law, contracts, business development, and transactions. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin Law School in 2006 and the University of Michigan first in 96 with a BA and 99 with a master's. And he currently serves as the Vice Chief Justice of the Muskogee Creek Nation Supreme Court, and he's the Deputy Chair of the Federal Bar Association Indian Law Section. So very impressive. Thank you, Andrew, for attending, and let's welcome him. I skipped over Damon. That wasn't not intentional, but we know Damon and have heard his very inspiring speech today. And on the end of the panel, we have Matt Ma, who originally came to the United States at the age of 8 from China and lived in 3 different countries growing up. He's currently a junior at the University of Michigan, majoring in business and minoring in Japanese. Matt also has been deeply involved in the Asian Pacific Islander American community here since his freshman year, serving as the finance chair for the Generation Asian Pacific American Cultural Show. So a wonderfully engaged student, and we are so happy that our panelists took the busy time out of their schedule, especially our students, to join us in commemoration of OAMI's 25th. So in the interest of time, we're going to hear first from our students on the panel. And the question that I'd like to pose to you is, well, first let me do a couple words of setup, and that is, in some of the work that we conduct within the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives around research, we find that students talk often about a variety of diversity offerings on campus. However, there seems to be limited intergroup interaction and understanding. So from your perspective, and in the interest of enhancing campus diversity here, as you know, because that's one of the major things we're focused on in OAMI. What can students or students groups do to foster and support this intergroup interaction and understanding?
Hello.
Takes a minute.
Hi. Hello.
It's on.
Okay. Yeah. So through my experiences as a student leader and who's been involved in planning various events in the University of Michigan, I've realized that our community, you know, the way we promote diversity is to embrace our own identities, and we have a lot of culture shows that is showcasing their own personal identities. And these culture shows, while they attract a lot of, you know, diverse audience members, I feel like the students that are, we can get more diverse amount of students that are involved in actually being in these events. So I think in the future, I really want to see more events that are showcasing the entire, you know, university campus, the diverse student groups, whether they be Filipinos, Chinese American, African Americans, so that they come together to host events together as one, instead of just having one event that's showcasing the Indian American culture, one event that's showcasing the Chinese American culture. Because I think when you have great student leaders that have the potential on our campus to do great things and host great events, we need to utilize that and bring them together and create one event that can showcase the unity within our community.
Okay. Good. Rebecca?
Yeah, and that was actually basically what I was going to say as well. So
Is your mic on?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
All right. Yep. That's basically what I was going to say as well. Not only just putting on events and programs that kind of showcase the diversity among the student groups, but also doing collaborative events among student groups in general is what should be like more enforced and beneficial, because not only is the audience benefiting from the program and learning, but also the people who are also involved within the group. Mm-hmm. So I completely agree in what you said about collaborative events as well.
So you're both honing into wanting to have something that cuts across groups and encourages that interaction. Do you have ideas around how we at the university, in terms of faculty, staff, and administration, can help foster and support that?
Yes,
and making that happen?
Yes, definitely. I feel like, because I'm also an active student. I'm also doing the Latino Culture Show as well as other organizations on campus. So I feel like in terms of departments such as OAMI, just being like a resource that's available for students on campus, and I feel like OAMI has done a great job since I've been here about being open, about being able to give advice, and as well give support, especially financially, because even though you want to give out this great grand event that's going to benefit a huge amount of people and audience, and if you don't have the funds to support that, then there really isn't there isn't any way to actually do it. So I feel like OAMI, not only in advice or suggestions, but also financial support, has been really great and help among students who are active in organizations on campus.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Rebecca said. And also, I think offices like OAMI have a lot of access to contact information of student leaders on campus, because they do come to you guys for help a lot of times. And these kind of contact information might be hard for other student leaders to get to personally. So if you guys could maybe help us compile a list of all the contact information of student leaders and maybe host an event where the student leaders can come together so that they can meet with one another and exchange these ideas, I think that would be a great platform for us to initiate these collaborations.
Great. Okay, one other question for the students, and then you all can kind of enjoy the panel until you have to leave. And that is, and it's coming from a more personal space, what role has your involvement with OAMI or other offices that share its goal of advancing campus diversity played in your academic or social experiences as a student at Michigan? And what has this involvement meant to you personally?
Well, I guess in terms of me personally, I've learned that groups and departments actually care about what students want to do and their passion and their interests. So it's kind of refreshing to kind of come about different organizations on campus or departments that are willing to help, want to help. They want these things to come about. So it's nice, especially coming from a background where things don't come so easily and stuff. So that's just really nice to encounter, as well as just like the office in general. has like a lot of different resources that are available for students. So I work there. And so it's just great to be able to encounter all these individuals in the department already with all these different resources that are very helpful, resourceful. So I feel like in general, personally, I've learned to be able to ask for help and actually receive help. So I've learned and I've grown personally through this experience and through OAMI.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I came into the University of Michigan as a freshman who really didn't know what my solid identity was. I think today's students really have a hard time developing what their identity is, and without that, they can't become, it's hard for them to become engaged, excuse me, in the community. So what really helped me as a freshman year was a program called Asian Pacific American 101. And that really taught me a lot about the issues in our community that we're facing today. And it really allowed me to develop a passion to be involved in our community. And through that, I did become involved with the Generation Asian Pacific American Culture Show. And this past year, I had the great honor of helping to lead the planning efforts for the Midwest Asian American Students Union Spring Conference. And this event, I collaborated with many people in OAMI office, and I've met with Dr. Matlock a few times, just, talking about how we can make our conference more inclusive. Even though it says it's Asian American, we don't want it to be restricted to Asian American students. We want to appeal to, African American students, Caucasian students, anyone who's interested in learning about our issues, because I think sometimes in today's society, in our community today, a lot of times we talk a lot about issues amongst our own communities, but one of our greater goals is to spread these voices to the bigger community, to other people, to more diverse audience members, because we want to make them aware of the issues on campus. So OAMI has definitely helped me, realize what we could do in order to do so, and I think our conference was a great success. And also, I've worked with the Office of Multi-Ethnic Student Affairs, and talking to all the leaders in there really helped me, realize how you have to develop as a leader. You have to sacrifice your personal opinions, because you have to be aware that everyone has their personal experiences that grew up with, and you have to be able to accommodate those needs.
Great. So wonderful insights around your own personal and professional development. And thank you for your contributions to how the office has been a critical part of your experience at U of M. So you still have time to enjoy the rest of the panel, but we just want to thank you before you have to exit. Can you join me in thanking them? So now we'll turn to the center of the panel here. And what I'd like to do is to start with the question around one of these, what I call a pie in the sky question. But it's something that we all work toward as we go about day to day engaging in our roles of advancing diversity on campus. So the question is, what is your vision of an ideal university learning environment that meets the needs of all students and successfully infuses diversity into the life of the campus? What do you think what factors or elements are critical in terms of making this happen? So why don't we start with Dr. Green?
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here today, and I just have to share a quick story before I sort of jump into responding to the questions. I came to OAMI in a very interesting way. There was a student who worked there, I believe her name was Linda, and she was a graduate student who was a part of the higher ed program. And when I was looking at different universities to go to, I was basically up the road at Central Michigan University working there. And after learning about being admitted, I had a chance to come and visit. And so Linda basically shared with me, Denise, University of Michigan has President Duderstadt. He has done this and that and this and that for diversity, and OAMI is the best place for you to come to because of John Matlock. You must meet him. And after I had a chance to meet John and learn about the office, and it wasn't in the building it's in now, it was actually in the administration building in Fleming, where you have the very small windows and so forth. So we were actually there, and that's where I really got my first start, working with John and never really knew that I was going to be a diversity professional. I didn't come here with that in mind, but the opportunity of working with OAMI and the wonderful staff and students and colleagues here at the table really gave me an opportunity that I couldn't have even imagined. And I just want to thank you, John, and the rest of you for that. Thank you very much. So when I think about a vision of diversity, given, excuse me, I guess I should have gotten some water. Could somebody bring me some water? Get some water. Thank you. As Katrina indicated, I'm at Ryerson University in the city of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. And when I got the opportunity to work there, I thought, if you're a diversity professional, Toronto is the place to be, because it's one of the most diverse cities in the world. And what's interesting is when I got the job, and I'll get to answering the question, when I got the job and I went to visit and have dinner with the search committee, I had a side conversation with the provost. And the provost shared with me this interesting thing. Thank you very much. Great. The provost said, now there was a little issue that came up. It doesn't concern you, but you're American. And the fact that they could not find or identify a person to fill this job, this is a job that is one of the first within the entire country. They do have chief diversity officers, but really not at the level of a vice provost or assistant vice president. And so the fact that they had to reach into America to hire someone for this position to help drive their diversity agenda, to me speaks volumes for how far the U.S. is in comparison to what's going on in Canada, even though in Toronto is one of the most diverse cities in the world. But because I am there, it does influence my vision. And my vision, given where Toronto is right now, I see a vision of a university that is truly inclusive, that is inclusive beyond race, that is inclusive in terms of multi-faiths, inclusive with respect to individuals with disabilities, inclusive in terms of women and persons who are female identified, inclusive of the LGBTQ two-spirited community. And the list can go on. It's much more comprehensive. I believe because of the various lawsuits and litigation that has come forth and gone up to the top to the U.S. Supreme Court, we have focused a lot on race, and race is certainly still a very viable issue that needs to be addressed. But the vision that I see is a vision of an institution that is inclusive of all students of complex identities in so many different ways. Along with that, what is necessary to make that happen? Of course, we deliver services, and OAMI has been an excellent vehicle for delivering services to students to provide that comprehensive environment for so many who maybe didn't find their place at U of M but could find a home at OAMI. However, beyond that, looking at the curriculum, making sure the curriculum is reflective of so much diversity that is within the institution, as well as the faculty. and looking at policies is something that I call the 4 Ps. Policies, our practices, our procedures, and our programs. If they're not infused with equity, diversity, and inclusion, then it's very likely that if the leadership changes, if resources change, if any particular element of accountability changes, then we cannot sustain diversity in the way that we truly envision it. And so from my standpoint, OAMI has provided an excellent foundation for me to look towards the future and look at how we as an institution, University of Michigan is certainly a leader in so many ways. And while I'm in Toronto, I plan on bringing quite a number of these practices to Toronto, and very happy to do so. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As Katrina said, my name is Andrew Adams, and it's a huge pleasure to be here this morning, to be asked to speak at the 25th anniversary of OAMI's inception. And I too want to thank Dr. Matlock for, in a lot of ways, kind of taking me under his wing when I landed here in the fall of 1992 as an undergraduate at the University of Michigan. Met Dr. Matlock through my work with the Native American Student Association and a staffer that he had in the office a long time ago, Melissa Pope, or Melissa Lopez, who did a lot of programming for the office at the time when it was in the Fleming Administration Building. And then formally started working for Dr. Matlock. I think I did a little bit of work as an undergrad, but started working for him as a graduate student in the Department of, or the program in American Culture. And it was just a great opportunity for me to see how the administration worked. As an undergraduate, I was a pretty vocal critic of the university's administration. So it was fascinating for me to kind of come into the fold and to be, you know, as lawyers might say, to be behind the tent a little bit, or behind the curtain, to kind of see how the university operated. And in some ways, I became more sympathetic, or a little bit sympathetic, in terms of the situation that administration gets put into in terms of making decisions that impact the campus and students, but also even a little bit more critical or cynical, because those decisions sometimes can be made, and I don't want to say not in the students' best interest, but from a political standpoint. And as you know, other great philosophers have said, you know, the personal is the political. So I mean, it's hard to divest that of any decision-making policy. But OAMI was a great experience for me. I think it really infused my career as a lawyer. And you might not be able to. I mean, it might be hard to connect those dots, but as a lawyer, I'm constantly put in situations where I have to juggle different responsibilities and viewpoints, those of my client, of my own career, my own ethics, and working with just the diversity of people in OAMI and being given different degrees of responsibility by Dr. Matlock and by Gloria Taylor and others. It just really helped with that. But I guess my perspective when it comes to universities and their institutional commitment is a little colored by the distinctions that I think are made for Native American students on a college campus, because in diversity conversations, there's so much that gets talked about in terms of race and ethnicity and multiculturalism, but for Native students, it can't ever be forgotten that throughout the history of the United States, Native American people have been, it's a distinct political and legal relationship that Native folks have with the U.S. government because of the history of the United States and its relationship with tribes and individual people. And even this university, the Treaty of Fort Meigs, talks about the creation, the granting of land so that the descendants of the people that signed that treaty could be educated at this university. And again, it's not like Dartmouth where it's written into the charter, but that treaty is intangibly linked to the history of the University of Michigan. And I never, once I was educated on that history as an undergraduate, I never forgot that in terms of at least the way that I considered or the standards that I imposed on the university for taking not only responsibility for that, but putting its best foot forward in terms of institutional commitment. And so someone, for myself, who I'm not in higher education, I feel like in some ways I'm a product of higher education, but in my world, in terms of navigating the professional realm, I think the same thing can be said for universities. I mean, there's a lot of big law firms out there that say they have Native, tribal or Native practice groups, but then they don't have any Indian lawyers. And that's not to say that that only Native American lawyers can practice Indian law, but I think there's something about that perspective that Native folks bring to the practice of Indian law that can't be replicated without having a certain mindset. And I think it would be like a Latino studies department here at the University of Michigan, and the entire faculty is made up of non-Latino people. I mean, I don't think that would be permissible. And so when I look at any institution, institutional dynamics, and when it says it's going to do this, and I think Dr. Matlock mentioned it earlier, you're not going to be measured by the promises that you make, you're going to be measured by the promises that you keep. And so when any institution puts its foot forward and says we're going to do this, there's got to be a commitment to doing it in a respectful and a proper way. And I look at that when it comes to universities. I look at it when it comes to governments, when it comes to corporations and other entities. If they're going to have a commitment and they're going to put their foot forward, they have to be serious about it and not just provide lip service.
Thank you. So we have two additional questions for the panel. And this next question, Damon, I'd like you to lead the response to this question, and then we'll engage the panelists. And the question asks, in your experiences at Michigan and beyond, what are some positive institutional interventions or best practices that have worked particularly well to advance diversity and enhance student success? Because after all, we are looking for a melding between infusing diversity, advancing diversity, and how successful our students become.
I think to answer the question from a particular context,
Give another one.
to answer the question from a particular type of context, I think would make it more meaningful. And so I like to answer it maybe from the context of increasing participation in student success in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And some of the things I've found to be incredibly helpful are cohort-driven approaches that bring students in as a part of a cohort or community, and then works to activate that cohort or community to become self-sufficient, where they help one another, but also to provide the type of context where you can really give them the type of support that they need to get through the most difficult academic areas that we have at most post-secondary institutions. Probably at every institution I've ever lectured at or participated in a discussion at, we see the same thing. So many students who have underrepresented background or first-generation college background who want to study in the STEM areas, and then over time it just whittles itself down to a trickle by the time we get to the actual 4, 5, or 6-year graduation window. And so some of the things I've found to be successful is drawing a line in the sand and saying that we're going to put them in a community, support them, and then use that community not just to isolate them, but use that community as a support system to get them highly involved in all the high-impact learning experiences that we know are important. Undergraduate research, involvement in study abroad, involvement in community service learning opportunities, involvement in internship experiences. All those things I think make the difference, and I think when you put the additional overlay of STEM, I think it becomes even more important, because what we find is that if you can get students through the first critical 3 semesters and shepherd them through the gateway courses, then you dramatically increase your ability to understand the ultimate success of your model and what you're doing. And those are things that I've made a part of my practice at other institutions. And one in particular program that we created at the University of Connecticut is now realizing 92% 6-year graduation rates for historically underrepresented minorities in the STEM areas. And that project is funded by the NSF.
Other ideas? Other ideas from the panel?
I would have to say the intergroup dialogue program that we started at Central Michigan University was definitely something that was very important, that we borrowed from the University of Michigan's dialogue programs as well. What was really critical about that specific initiative is getting it into the curriculum and making those type of courses count. It's so important that while we may have these programs that are considered co-curricular, that we also build it into the curriculum, because you're not able to reach everyone through your programming. So what we did at CMU, we actually came to Michigan during one of the summer institutes that talked about intergroup dialogue and laid out the steps of developing one's own program. And when we took that and developed it at CMU, what we found is that we had to make it our own. And in making it our own, it became very apparent that many of the students were very interested in these type of courses, but the part that was the barrier was that it wasn't elective and it didn't count within the curriculum. So I guess the main takeaway I'm trying to share here is that when you're developing curricular type initiatives, making sure that it counts, making sure that it incorporates aspects of interactions between students of different backgrounds, making sure that you have an evaluative component that's a part of it. And we were able to gain the credibility that sometimes diversity offices don't have on the academic side of the house, because we don't drive curriculum. We just primarily offer services. But this was able to really elevate what we did and connect us more with the academic mission.
Yeah, and I think, one from my experience, some of the strong things that I think help with getting me through college and law school and the other educational experiences that I have had have been strong mentoring, whether that was kind of in an institutionalized setting where like it was organized, or it was just me seeking out folks that I could just ask questions of, that I could just kind of learn from. And so I think mentoring I think is huge for both institutions of higher education, but also like in a professional sense for folks that are going into the professional world, like having some type of access to mentoring. And then I would agree with Denise that I think there's got to be a diversity of a student body, but there's also got to be a diversity of faculty and a diversity of the curriculum, so that students that are attending a university can also see themselves represented, not only in the classroom with the folks that are teaching those courses, but also in the materials that they're being exposed to.
Okay, that's a perfect segue into our final question for the panel. And as we all know, higher education generally has been beset with a number of different challenges as we engage in our work of preparing our students for leadership in an increasingly diverse society. So the question to you, panel, is what do you see as the most pressing challenges for advancing diversity in higher ed in the future? And what ideas do you have for addressing these challenges?
Okay, I guess there are a few challenges that are on the forefront of my list here. One aspect is simply because you have a diverse community does not mean it's inclusive. And that is a lesson that I'm actually learning in my new job in Toronto. As I stated earlier, the city is extremely diverse. But when you look at post-secondary and you begin to look up the ranks from students, faculty, administrators, and so forth, you begin to observe that certain faces are not there, certain voices are not represented. And while various environments can tout that we have a diversity of students, and actually at Ryerson University, the visible minorities, that's how they're called in Canada, the visible minorities at Ryerson University is well over 50% of the student population. And so the idea of growing a diverse student population, they're pretty much past that. But looking at aspects of inclusion, moving beyond the demographics, is where I believe some of the critical issues are. Inclusion within the faculty, inclusion within the leadership, inclusion within the curriculum, and definitely inclusion within policies and practices. Because while we may have our different offices and programs, if we don't have policies and practices there that infuse equity, diversity, and inclusion within the fabric or DNA as to how our organizations should run, then there are many opportunities to miss the boat, not only for individuals who are racialized or have race and ethnicity as a strong identity, but women, individuals with disabilities, and in my case, Aboriginal peoples, and so forth. So the aspect of inclusion is extremely important. Leadership. Where is the diversity among the leadership? There are some places that have made strides. We have a person here, a person there. Once they leave, then what happens? Where is the diversity among the leadership? It's great to tout the diversity among the faculty, as well as the staff and the students, but it must start with the leadership, including the regents, as well as various boards. I've already spoke about the curriculum. I can't harp on that enough, because that is a part of our mission. We're about creating new knowledge and delivering that to the students so that they can go forth and change the world in whatever space of the world they find themselves in. And not incorporating diversity into the curriculum, we miss an opportunity. Even when we have a diversity of students, there's no guarantee that the concepts of diversity will be activated within the discussion. Because quite frankly, many of our students come here with a very, I would say, MTV-esque type mentality and view. And especially when you think about social media, it's all wrapped up into it. I've even started a Twitter account in order to make sure I'm connected with not only colleagues, but students, as well as a Facebook page. I never thought I would start Facebook, but I have. And then I guess the last 2 points, or the last point, access, access, access. We must provide access for all students. And that can be a challenge for an institution such as the University of Michigan. It's very expensive to go here. Lord knows my daughter goes here, and it's very painful when I make that payment every month. But at least I can make a payment every month. Some people can't do that. Some people who can come here, even with the opportunities that U of M offers, it's just a dream. So encouraging higher education to find more ways to make the institutions inclusive and inclusive for all.
A couple things. One point I'd want to make is that, and Denise alluded to it just a little bit, is how it's the ways in which the new economy is transforming organizational life across the board. And the new economic reality that we find ourselves in is not going to change. And that reality is that too many of our graduates are unemployed and underemployed when they finish. They're more encumbered with loan debt than ever before. And those numbers become even more dangerous when we skew them in terms of race, ethnicity, and first-generation college students. And so too many of our students, whether they're at the University of Michigan, University of Wisconsin, or they're at Eastern Michigan, they're finding themselves getting to the end of the line and not being able to access opportunities that they went to higher education to pursue. I think one of the things we've got to is double down on intentional leadership development and helping young people to understand how to navigate this experience in such a way that they're able to move out of this experience and really accelerate themselves into opportunities. That's one thing. Another thing, and it hasn't been addressed at all, is the epic level crisis that we face in terms of male youth of color issues. Whether we're talking about African Americans, Latinos, Southeast Asians, or Native Americans, and increasingly even rural white, we have a burgeoning challenge which is of an absolute epic proportion, particularly as it relates to African Americans and Latino males. Latino males more likely to drop out of school before high school than any other constituent group. African American males at most major metropolitan areas, graduation rates from high school somewhere in the low 30s at most institutions. And the implications of that in terms of this group becoming very much a vanishing extinct group on predominantly white campuses, particularly those that are selective, whereby we will see individuals of my background and characteristics only on football team, basketball team, and track teams, is a future that is not in the distant, but is a future that we're seeing right now today. And then the other piece of that we're not engaging is what is the implication of that on girls, and what is the implication on that on young women. And I think that there's a tremendous level of conversation going on around the country around these issues. I did a research project just using the internet and some of my undergrads very simply, and we identified 1,300 African-American male initiatives around the country just using the internet. So that's almost like just the tip of the iceberg of what you know exists beneath the surface. And we started a coding project to try to understand what was going on with this movement. But I just feel like that is one of the critical issues of higher education. There's a ton of others, but that is one that hadn't gotten any airtime in our discussion today, and I just wanted to make sure I put it out there.
Yeah, and I would agree with Damon on the point in terms of access and in the economics of higher education. I mean, the fascinating thing for me right now is that I've got a couple partners at my law firm, some of my bosses that are about to send their children to college, and you've got the parents still paying student loan debt, and they're about to pay or help their children pay college tuition. And so I see this kind of crazy kind of vicious cycle that society could go down here pretty soon, where I don't recall that growing up or when I went to college, where a lot of the folks that I went to college with complaining that, well, my parents are having to help me pay for college, but they're also trying to pay for the debt associated when they went to college. And I think, and that's not me saying that money is the solution to everything and just throw a bunch of money at diversity, folks of diverse backgrounds going to school and paying for them to go to school. Of course, that would be nice. I mean, of course, no one's going to say that that's a bad idea. But I think, from my perspective, I see that as being a huge challenge. And you see that, and I guess I've looked at it more closely when it comes to people of color going to law school and graduating. But the number of people of color that are entering law school in the last couple of years has just dropped dramatically, but so have the overall numbers of people entering law school, because folks have finally caught on, or it's become prohibitively expensive for law school or another professional, a professional school to be like the plan B. Well, I can't find a job, so I'll just go to law school, and then I'll just kind of continue my education, and I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, law school was cheap enough where you could kind of pull that off. You can't now. I mean, if you want to get a law degree almost at any law school in the United States, and if you don't have some type of scholarship support or you're independently wealthy, you're going to come out of law school with at least $100,000 worth of debt. And if you don't do all that well in law school, or you don't have access to a high-paying job, then you're saddled with a huge amount of debt, and you don't want to think about it in these terms, but it limits the type of jobs that then you can pursue when you leave law school. And so that's the scary thing for me, raising I've got 3 young kids. My daughter is 10 years old, and I'm thinking, man, I'm paying law school debt, and my daughter is going to be entering college hopefully in 8 years. I'm not going to have my student loans paid off in that time. And I mean, luckily I'm in a position where I can currently afford to pay my student loans, but I can't even imagine paying my student loans and getting my three children through college. So I mean, I see that as being a huge disincentive, and that's not only just for folks of color. That's almost for anybody who is saddled with a lot of student loan debt. So I do think that the federal government does need to take a strong look at the amount of student loan debt that is like hanging out there, because it's going to contribute to this situation where there is going to be big inequalities in terms of who has access to a college education, whether it's based on how well you perform in terms of your GPA and standardized tests, or just your ability to even just walk in the door and afford the place. But then the other big challenges in terms of diversity in higher education that I see are just the systematic attacks when it comes to private universities and their ability to have the freedom to initiate their own policies to create an inclusive and diverse college campus. You see state governments, you see independent folks from, say like the Heritage Foundation and other private entities that create these anti-policies to try to dismantle that stuff. And I think, again, that's why it's so important for universities like this to graduate folks that have the freedom and the ability to work in those realms, and that can push a policy that protects and safeguards, the history of offices like OAMI and other places, so that good work can continue to happen.
So, thank you. Thank you for your insightful commentary, panelists, and join me once again in thanking them as they exit.
Okay, so the King Chavez Parks Initiative, also known as KCP, and the Equity Conference Planning Committee would like to congratulate Dr. Matlock, Associate Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and Executive Director of the Office of Academic and Multicultural Initiatives, on his retirement from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and thank him for his dedication to promoting diversity at the university and beyond. Over the years, the KCP initiative has undergone various legislative challenges and has at times even faced removal from the state budget. Dr. Matlock has been instrumental not only in the success of the KCP initiative, but also in keeping it afloat. Governor Rick Snyder has also prepared a tribute to Dr. Matlock, and although we were unable to have it on hand today, I would like to share an excerpt from Governor Snyder's tribute to Dr. Matlock. Governor Snyder writes, "I want to acknowledge your service to the state of Michigan and the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor through your leadership in a broad range of organizations dedicated to supporting diversity, including the state of Michigan's King Chavez Parks Initiative, various campus initiatives such as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Symposium, the President's Diversity Council, the University of Michigan's Association of American Universities Campus Diversity Conference, the Detroit Compact and McCree Incentive Scholars Program, and serving as principal investigator for various grants funded by the U.S. Department of Education and the state of Michigan, Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program, Washington County COPE Program, School Juristic University Partnership, the American Association of Blacks in Higher Education, Michigan Technological University's Corporate Board on Diversity, Wayne State University Center for Academic Excellence for National Security Intelligence Studies Program, and representing the U of M at various initiatives in China, Africa, and the Caribbean. Because of your hard work and dedication, the Office of Academic Multicultural Initiatives has been recognized nationally for its ability to use diverse staff, faculty, and students to advance campus diversity initiatives, implement innovative programs in the areas of academic success and engagement, and involve them in leadership, research, mentoring, and tutoring, and pre-college activities. Your tireless efforts to support diversity in higher education, employment, and in all walks of life have helped to ensure that Michigan is a welcoming and inclusive place to live, work, and learn. On behalf of the KCP Initiative, the Equity Conference Planning Committee, and the state of Michigan, Dr. Matlock, we would like to congratulate you on your retirement and thank you once again for your leadership and service to the citizens of our great state.
As Katrina said, this is a plaque we're awarding John that comes from just those of us who work at OAMI. John, when he stunned us all with the announcement of his retirement a few months ago, stipulated very adamantly that there be no public recognition of his 25 years at OAMI. And while the rest of the university was intimidated and went along with that, we who work at OAMI have, since we come there, resisted his intimidations, and we so resist them today. So this plaque I'm going to present him with comes from those of us who work with him. And one of the advantages of being 90 years old is that I'm the only one of all of those who work at OAMI who has been at OAMI, was there 25 years ago to welcome John back to the University of Michigan, and the only one who's been at OAMI for 25 years that he has been there. 5 years while I was still a professor in higher education here at the university, and the 20 years after that, that I have been, well, I guess resisting my retirement by continuing a little work at OAMI. So the advantages of being 90 is that you get to be the person who has the honor of presenting this award to John. Katrina gave me an admonition, which I guess I won't quite live up to, but I hope to come close to, that I talk no more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes is usually the time I take to clear my throat, so it's pretty hard to do it, but I'll try to come close. I want to say, since I am under a time limit, to restrict what I say about John's leadership of OAMI to just 2 main points. One is that in his qualities as a leader, he has combined 2 qualities that don't usually go together, but that when they do go together, make for an incredibly effective leader, organizational leader, particularly in a leadership and in an organization that depends on the creativity and the innovativeness of the people doing the work, as the work at OAMI and all of the work in diversity does. One, John was a very, very involved leader. He's very involved in all the programs and all the projects that you'll see as you wander the room that OAMI is involved in and has been involved in over its 25 years. It's involvement that only starts at the inception and the initial thinking about the program, an involvement that includes gathering the resources for the program, but he's been very involved in the day-to-day operations of the programs. He's there in the morning when you get to the office, and he's usually there when you leave in the evening. And he's been very, very involved in the day-to-day operation of these projects. Very involved with meeting with the people doing the work, a very active participant in many of their staff meetings that go on throughout the project in the day-to-day running of the work. Now, this involvement could be a very mixed blessing, and actually not a blessing, but a stranglehold. So it's been very important and very essential that John has combined this great involvement in the daily working of these projects, combined that with a tremendous ability to give autonomy, complete autonomy really, to the people running the programs. So essentially, he's been a leader who has given support for them to be creative and innovative in the carrying out of their projects. And the second thing I want to say about John is that while he's been very, very proud of the programs and the work that OAMI has done, he has always seen OAMI and the work it does in a broader historical and national perspective. He has viewed OAMI and his work at OAMI in the 25 years since he's come back to Michigan to lead this effort. He has always seen it as representing Michigan's general historic role, the historic role that Michigan has played in the response of higher education to the forces unleashed by the civil rights movement, the whole focus on diversity and the generally opening up of higher education that has become in response to the civil rights movement. He has seen OAMI as essentially the face of Michigan diversity, and he has gone out and, in a way, been the ambassador, not of OAMI, but of the whole program for diversity at the University of Michigan. He has been the face of OAMI for that program. He's been the face in a very personal way. He's done hundreds, in over 25 years, I'm sure, hundreds of presentations around the country, talking not about OAMI specifically, about the Michigan message on diversity and how you deal with diversity in higher education. He's been the personal one in recent years. I think Katrina, who's done this with him in recent years, has mentioned that they've made more than 150 presentations to institutions and regional and national conferences around the country, presenting, as I said, not the OAMI message, but the general Michigan message. And he's also done this in some of the programs that have been prominent in Michigan's repertory, most prominent among them being the fact that Michigan has been the unit that has organized, and this is really a year-long effort spent in organizing the annual MLK Symposium. And the kind of event that is, I think we've all known, and we've all gone and experienced it, but I want you to just pay attention, particular attention, as you go around the room later, to the report and the reminder of just who were the major keynote speakers at the MLK Symposium over the past 25 years. And it is kind of a staggering, impressive national list of major thinkers and artists in the whole diversity endeavor. So John has been a great leader of OAMI, and it brings a kind of sadness, in a way, to this celebratory event, because after all, he's leaving, and we sort of wonder who's coming later. But I want to say something about John in retirement. As you see, I've not, except for some physical effects, have been trying very, very manfully to just deny my retirement, keep trying to operate within its constraints. And I've seen many, many people who have not retired successfully, particularly over the past 20 years, and sort of hang around and wonder what they're going to do. And some who have really had wonderful retirements. And to end this, which is after all a celebratory note, on a happy note, to end this event on a happy note, I'd like to say that I predict at 100% probability that John will have a very, very happy retirement. And I say this because I think the major quality that distinguishes those who've done miserably in retirement from those who've lived very happy retirements, that the major distinguishing characteristic has been their ability to maintain their curiosity. And I think all of us who know John will admit that he has an incredible thirst for curiosity, a tremendous curiosity about all aspects of the world, not but diversity. He's an avid reader. He and Margaret are wonderful travelers, and he's always full of new things about things that have engaged him. I just found out yesterday, he just happened to drop by my office, and I found out that when John was a kid growing up in the projects and a young man, he developed a passion to have cats as pets, and that he had Siamese cats as his pets. And on top of that, in about 10 minutes, he gave me a fascinating discussion about the very interesting aspects of the genetic structure of cats and what makes them what they are. All this in 10 minutes. So I am sure that John will have a very, very happy and enjoyable retirement. So on that note, on that happy note, I'd like to just present this plaque to John, which doesn't come from any of the big offices at the university, but comes from those who have worked for you for a good chunk of the years you've spent. And the plaque says to John Matlock, with a list of his present titles, which I won't mention, but it's to John for 24 years of dedication, service, guidance, and leadership to students, staff, and the community. Good luck, John. Good luck. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm supposed to say something. But I'm kind of, as a former speechwriter for two congressmen, I'm kind of speechless. And I do know that whenever staff, you're still fired. So, but whenever they want to do something that I disapprove of, they always trot Jerry out. Because I think age has its privileges, and then I can't fire him. And we did have a lovely discussion. He didn't know that I used to breed Siamese cats. Something I picked up in college. And I would be the only black person at a cat show. And I had lousy cats. I mean, because I bought a Siamese, but it was a pet level. Because you have breeders, and you have show cats, and you have pet level. And I brought a pet level cat and had the nerve to enter him into a cat show and left with ribbons. So, and I think it was because they were so intrigued with this black person at a cat show with this $10 cat. And so that's how I got into cats. This has really been a pleasure for me. It's been a good ride. I made the right choice of leaving leaving Washington and coming back to the university, because I realized at some point that's what I wanted to do. I had planned, when I went to Washington, I planned to do it for 2 years. And 10 years later, I was still liking it. And that's scary in Washington. Particularly, I did my whole 10 years under Ronald Reagan as the president. He came the same month that I came there. This has been an easy ride in many cases because for two reasons. One, always having a wonderful staff, and you've heard some of them today, but There's been a tremendous amount of pride when you travel around, you see folks that worked in your office, and you like to think that maybe you had something collectively to do with it. The second thing is I think it's very important to have great bosses I thought working with Conyers and Congressman Conyers and Congressman Ford was the best thing ever, but working with Lester has also been a wonderful experience. And it's easy working with someone that's so committed as he is, and the beatings that he takes on a daily basis, because the higher up the ladder you go, the more you see, and the more the more you see and the more concerns that you have. Jerry and I were also talking yesterday about, as staff know, why they always get these 3 o'clock emails and 2 o'clock emails at 3 a.m. And it's because sometimes you're a reflection of your childhood. Number one, I used to be a paper boy, so I had to get up every morning about 3:30, 4 o'clock to deliver Detroit Free Press, because folks, if they didn't have their sports, they'd be very upset. The second thing, my father worked the afternoon shift. He didn't get home until 1 o'clock and always stayed up, partly because he always brought something, so I was the ultimate Skinner rat, you know. He would bring some peanuts or hot sausage or tamales, and so it was worth staying up. And so that's the habit that I got into, and we all tend to be a reflection of our experiences. I'm looking forward to retirement. People keep saying you seem really happy. It's not that I'm happy getting away. It's happy. I'm happy about the continuation of a journey. And so Margaret and I start working on our list. The one thing that she will not do with me, my goal in life, we used to have African medical students stay with us in the summertime, who were going to Howard, but they were working at a hospital in Detroit. And I've always had a goal to go to Mount Kilimanjaro and to walk up the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. And so that's one of the first things I will be doing next year. So if you get this call or email from me at 19,000 feet, then I made it. And Margaret said that, you know, in our relationship, in our 20 plus years, we have partnership goals and we have individual goals. And the individual goals, the understanding is that I may not understand what you want to do, but I support it. And that's worked very well for us. And so Margaret said, the best I can do, she said, I support your climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, but she said, the best thing I can do is get you to the airport. This is your journey. So again, thank you for 25 years, have made lots of friends here. We are going to stay in Ann Arbor. We've made that, after 10 years saying we out of this place and out of the cold weather, I suddenly decided that I like some seasons. So we'll travel a lot, but we'll still be around. Thank you for making my 25 years wonderful, wonderful years, and do be happy for me as we make this transition. I hope that all of you will be making transitions at some point. The most important thing is to plan for it, because I suddenly decided that there are a lot of things in my life that I have not accomplished. Now, I see Katrina sneaking up behind me, so I know what that means.
I've had enough practice at the presentation.
That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent of the hook. So again, thank you. Appreciate it. No, I'm not a little surprised, but I...
Here you go, John. Okay, so the only thing standing between us and lunch is a wonderful closing performance. And we have a violinist with us by the name of Taylor Moore. And if Taylor can come to the stage, we thank you for being here and look forward to your performance.